Hey, it's Uncle Gameboy. Yes, we're doing it again. It is the Uncle Gameboy show, and I'm Uncle Gameboy, and this is the Uncle Gameboy show. It's Uncle Gameboy's Becoming Cultured, where I'm gonna read you some things because I was, gonna do my normal thing where I'm like trying to do Celebrity Jeopardy and make fun of Man Undercover and stuff like that. And I was watching The Sopranos just a moment ago, and it was the episode where or I guess there was a couple episodes where Tony's in the hospital and he's on the brink of death and whatnot. And it was reminding me a little too much, I think, of when I was in the hospital and on the brink of death. So it kind of put me in a little bit of a bummer mood. So I sort of reconsidered as to whether or not I want to be trying to be funny, in the current state that I am. Normally, I'm like, I have no hope, even in the best of circumstances. And I can't say that that's what's going on right now. I'm just going to make sure my sound's working okay. In the current state that I am. Yeah, that's fine. Normally. Okay. So yeah, I'm not even, I figure, just keep doing what I was doing earlier. So if maybe my mood will improve. I don't know why it would, because I'm transferring from thinking of something terrible from my own personal situation to something that is, some of the most horrible shit I've ever read about in some instances. But, it doesn't remind me of anything that happened to me. All right. Like I was in the hospital for a significant period of time and almost died and all that stuff. So I can relate to that. I can't relate to having my son fed to me or having to cut off most of my face to infiltrate an enemy army or something of that nature, like the stuff that I've read in the histories. So, I don't know. How much do you want me to explain this to you? Honestly, like I'm just gonna get into it. All right, we're just gonna go start where my goal, my intention here is to try to get through the introduction at least, so we can get to the book proper at some point, presumably. Well, look at this fucking guy. This is a thick motherfucker. All right, it's gonna take a minute. And I was thinking, like, if we get to the actual parts of the book, which it's gonna be a minute until we get there, if I even continue to do this, which I'm not sure about, but I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm enjoying refamiliarizing myself with this ancient history stuff. And, if you don't like it, that's too fucking bad, I guess. I don't care. The show's not for anybody but me. Okay. And I like it. So that's fine. And if you want to change what the show is, by all means, pay me money and I will consider doing it at least, fucking. You know how this shit works. It's a pay to play system as I understand it, So I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else you want me to fucking do except what I want to fucking do. Okay. I feel uncomfortable explaining what I'm doing so much, I guess because it's so obvious. I don't fucking understand what Twitch is at all. It's baffling to me, truly baffling. I just go through and I'm like, what is this? Why would anyone watch this? It's fucking nuts. I saw a guy in there was doing like push, because here's the thing. I do pull-ups. I'm not like amazing shape at all, okay? But like I fucking do pull-ups a lot to like exercise or whatever. And I was like thinking like, hey, I could fucking have a thing where I fucking like, hey, you give me like a hundy bitty or whatever, and I'll do fucking 5 pull-ups. To do 5 pull-ups. I can do like more than that, okay? I can do more than that, all right? I can do more than that, all right? I can do more than 5, okay? I can do more than that. I can do more than 5, okay? I can do more than that. I can do more than 5, okay? Let's be clear. I can do that. I can do more than that. I can do more than 5. Okay. But, if I'm going to like encourage people to continue to give me biddy or whatever, I'm going to have to do a manageable amount. Okay. I'm going to do a manageable amount. So I think like 5 is good. Anyway, point being, I looked on this guy's Twitch thing and he was like, it seemed like that was like the whole premise of it. It was like, I was just thinking this is like a thing that could like incentivize people to enjoy what would be a normal show. I'm doing shit like this and like watching fucking TV shows and crap like that. But this whole thing was this guy fucking works out on there. And I was just like, okay, I guess I'll see what the fuck this is for a second. And I click on it. Motherfucker does one fucking pull up and then goes like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? One pull up? And your whole fucking thing is that I'm like the workout guy? I'm the workout guy and I do one pull up. What the fuck, man? What is going on there? What are you paying people to do? I don't understand. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I was like, okay, and I'm going to see someone do some like fucking American Ninja Warrior shit. He does one pull up. One pull up. I'm incensed. Can you see? I mean, this is not a joking time. This is not a joking matter. This is a very, very serious thing. Okay. You people are wasting your time and, more importantly, your freaking money on a bunch of assholes who aren't even fucking doing anything. I'll do something. I'll fucking do pull-up. I'll do push-up. I got my arm bike here. I'll jump on that motherfucker for like 10. I'll do whatever you fucking want. I'll run around the damn neighborhood. I'll carry the laptop with me and I'll fucking run around the neighborhood. I'll do whatever it fucking takes. I'll do it. All right? I'll do more than one damn pull-up. Fuck me. My whole damn channel, I got fucking like, I don't know. I don't think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's the only strong man I've ever heard of, okay? So I can't even name other one. Andre the Giant. He had a poster of freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger and Andre the Giant. And I'm like, this guy is going to be a physical specimen. And he does one pull-up. One pull-up. Come on, man. It's a 250 pull-up workout. I'm like, that's a lot more than I do. My goal is a hundo if I'm doing pull-ups for the day. And I don't often get to that. I'm happy if I'm pushing 60 or 70 for the entire day. It's like, who cares if you can do 250 fucking pull-ups if you do them one at a time? That don't count, buddy. That don't count, all right? That don't count, buddy. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get like this. This was not my intention for the Uncle Gameboy show. This was supposed to be not talking about my problems and my personal frustrations with things. We're supposed to be learning about history, and that's what we're going to be doing. Let me put on a video real quick. And I'll fucking get to it. I'll fucking get to it. Hold on. I'll fucking get to it, and I'll fucking get right to it. I'll fucking get right to it, and I'll fucking get right to it. Right on it, man. Fucking getting right to it. Fucking right to it. Okay, great. Now the scene is set. Now the mood is set. Now you understand what I'm talking about. You can have a visual aid. These people used to live in things like this. Like this. That. There we go. Yeah, okay. Yes, where were we? Right here. At the end of the part. That makes sense, right? The intellectual and moral world of Herodotus. To continue. In all this, it is hard to see Herodotus as anything but revolutionary. As the great scholar and historian Momigliano put it vividly, quote, there was no Herodotus before Herodotus. We can pick out earlier writers who pursued one or another element of the many areas of inquiry that appear in Herodotus's histories. Of these, Hecataios was the greatest, writing circa 500 BC. He wrote a geographical work enumerating the peoples and places of the circumnavigation of the Mediterranean and trying to collect, systematize, and rationalize the many contradictory legends of the Greeks in a work called Genealogies. Other prose writers may have written short works on Lydian history and Persian history, but none of these have survived in anything but a few fragments, and in any case, the great mass of Herodotus' histories draws on oral traditions and witnesses rather than written works. With the exception of Homer, the predecessors of Herodotus seem only to make Herodotus and it's like the apostrophe after the S because his name ends in S, but I don't know how to say it except Herodotus. It's like Flanders. With the exception of Homer, the predecessors of Herodotus only seem to make Herodotus' achievement of all the more monumental, and we can perhaps understand the histories more if we view Herodotus not so much as a comparison with the few shadowy writers somewhat before his time, but against the background of developments in his own contemporary world. The supreme model for a narrative on this scale was provided by Homer, the Iliad as a narrative of war, the Odyssey of travels. There are clear Homeric features in Herodotus from the very opening, where he declares that his aim is partially to ensure that fame, or kleos in Greek, is preserved from the ravages of time. Sorry. The larger structure owes something to Homer, and similarities bring out the Homeric resonances and parallels for Greek readers who would have been very familiar with the epics. At the start of Xerxes' great invasion of Greece, there is a long catalog of his forces, which is clearly reminiscent of the great catalog of ships of the Greek forces at Troy in the Iliad. Dreams play a large part in the Xerxes narrative, as he is persuaded to go ahead with his disastrous expedition against Greece by a series of dreams sent by the gods to ensure that, despite all arguments raised against the expedition, he nevertheless continues his plans to invade Greece. Similarly, early in the Iliad, Agamemnon is sent a deceptive dream which leads him to believe that the capture of Troy could be imminent. Though here, as the circumstances and effects are so different, we may wonder if the deceptive dream is simply a feature of the Greek conception of how dreams and the divine may function in human life, and, as such, common to both Homer and Herodotus. Herodotus uses phrases and expressions that are reminiscent of Homeric ones, and the practice of giving speeches to the actors in his histories continues what is originally a Homeric practice. Yet there are sharp differences between them too, and Herodotus on several occasions distances himself from the Homeric account in such a way as to emphasize his superior methods and judgment. Writers began to write in prose as opposed to verse in the 6th century for serious attempts to elucidate the grand workings of the cosmos and to distance themselves from the dominant poetic tradition. Most early philosophy was in prose, and the early rationalization and ordering of the myths by writers such as Herodotus, I don't think I'm saying that right, were written in a rather dry prose. By Herodotus' time, then, prose was the medium for serious investigation into the world, although Homer's authority was still enormous. We can often see Herodotus distancing his account and his whole approach from the Homeric vision. One example we saw above, where Herodotus proclaimed effectively that it was only the recent past that could properly be known as a subject of real knowledge. I'm sick. I'm always sick. I'm always sick. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. So, if you don't like it, go to the other streams. I'm sure they're much better. From what I've seen, they're literally the worst things on earth. Like the most boring, unfunny. Even saying it's unfunny would mean that they are trying to be funny. They're trying to do anything other than just dryly describe what they're doing. If you can honestly fucking tell me, in your heart of hearts, in good faith, mind you, that what I'm doing right now, reading one of the most important and significant works of classical literature that has ever been written, trying to educate the public and inform them of things that could help them not seem like such a dumbass in the future, potentially, to whatever the fuck is going on over there, bona fortuna. I wish you the most luck in your life that God can bestow upon you, because you will need it. You will need it. Because, unfortunately, you are not born with even one brain cell in your entire freaking head. And I don't know how you live with that. And I don't know what you should do with it. But you need to go. You need to go to your fucking boring, dead-eyed fucking playing a video game and telling you every single little insignificant movement they're making and responding to the banal questions of stupid people in their chat. Go there. I'm trying to do something of value here, if you don't mind. Okay? Anyway, where the fuck was I? You fucking people. You fucking. Your idiocy drives me blind. It like Homer himself. You have blinded me with your just confounding stupidity. Your deliberate stupidity, more importantly. There's a world of difference between someone who is stupid and an idiot, or uninformed, as I should say, and an idiot. It's okay to not know things. It's one thing to be willfully unknowing, though. But, you do you. You do you. Clearly, you people have it figured out, and I don't, because I've got nobody watching this but me, But I'd be lying if I said I don't think what I'm doing is significantly, like, many, many, many miles better. It just has to be. It has to be by virtue of me just reading a freaking book or watching a TV show and commenting on it, That alone is more than, as far as I can tell, 90%, if not much more than that, much closer to 100, getting into fractions of percent if we want to fucking make it actually representative, are doing on there. It's fucked. It's totally fucked. I was looking at it earlier today. This is the last I'm going to say that. I was looking at it earlier today, just getting fucking confusingly upset. And it's like, I got to stop looking at this. I got to stop looking around here. I know that there's like a couple creators that I like. I know them from podcasts that I listen to. I listen to thousands and thousands of hours of podcasts. And it's like, if they're funny on the podcast and they got a stream, their stream is probably funny. But when I'm just scrolling through Twitch, just seeing what they recommend or whatever, it's all hot diarrhea. It is the worst shit on earth. And I'm just not going to look at it anymore. It's just like even trying to find out something on there is a fucking enormous waste of time. It's just, I don't know what you fucking people are doing with your lives. I don't know. And I don't think I want to be a part of it. I mean, I shouldn't be on here at all because I don't want to be a part of it at all. I don't want to encourage you to do it. I don't want to try to do it myself. You know, I imagine if I ever got an audience, I'd be quite rude to them. You know, I have nothing but contempt for them. That's what I've imagined anyway when I've thought about anybody liking what I do. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. You know, these things come to mind, and you know, you're here with me, and we're just kind of shooting loose. You know, shooting loose. That works, right? We're just shooting loose here. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if this is where he stopped. I'm just going to keep going here. Yet there are sharp differences. There are sharp differences between them too. And Herodotus, on several occasions, distances himself from the Homeric canons around here, in such a way as to emphasize his superior methods and judgment. Writers, yeah. I read all that. One example we saw above where Herodotus proclaimed effectively that it was only the reason past could properly be known as a subject of real knowledge. In Herodotus's idea that wisdom comes from travel, which he implies in his description of his own research and makes still clear in the account of the travels of Solon the lawgiver, we might see echoes of the Homeric Odysseus, who saw many cities and came to know their minds. That's a quote. But Herodotus often demolishes traditions and criticizes myths. He takes apart the veracity of basic elements of Homer's Iliad in a remarkable section of Book 2, where he argues that Helen never reached Troy but remained in Egypt for the war, and he believes Homer rejected this version of it as inappropriate for epic. Herodotus often recorded traditions as they stood, as is often pointed out, but he also corrected them and stressed that he had the truth. He seems deliberately to mark his distance from the great epics in his very opening sentence. The publication of his inquiry is an expression which belongs to the intellectual currents of the second half of the 5th century, and it is placed just before he expresses the desire to preserve the fame of great achievements, which is an entirely Homeric idea. Then the next 5 paragraphs juxtapose legends of various women being seized in rationalized versions of the old legends, which, with accounts about the past, which he characterizes as what, quote, I know, unquote. The epic poet appealed to the muse to give him his story. Quote, sing, goddess of the wrath of Peleus' son Achilles. The oral poet calling upon the muse for inspiration and the very material of his epic. Herodotus' opening, on the other hand, signals to his audience that his sources are actually his own inquiries and his own travels, his own experience. The hint at external sources of information is couched in terms of a new, entirely human-based search for knowledge. That's interesting. Herodotus' awareness of his sources, the way he actually mentions his methods and distinguishes between what he has seen and what he has only heard, enable him to delineate his work as a new kind of inquiry. For instance, he emphasizes the Egyptians keep records of the past and therefore are the most learned of any people he knows. He claims the Egyptian priests as sources of information throughout Book 2. I also think he claims that they're like the most religious people ever. And it's fascinating what we do when we don't know about ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. Like we have sort of a kind of outline, I guess, like a narrative structure to a certain extent of their mythological stories, but we don't have stuff from like Euripides or other Greek philosophers and writers, dramatists, etc., that help explain what they thought about them or what context it gave their lives. You know, we really don't know hardly anything about that. We just know it was very, very, very important to them. Their entire society revolved around that. The hierarchy of their structure was entirely religious, you know. And that's not necessarily anything new. Like Julius Caesar said he was related to Venus. Like having the progeny of your rule be justified by literal, like genetic, I guess, for our modern terminology, relation to a god is not uncommon. But I believe he might even say this at some point, like specifically, or something close to it. But I think he says something like the Egyptians were closer to their gods than any other people. Anyway, or more implausibly, he declares that he himself saw a great marvel at the site of the Battle of Pelusium, where he was shown the Egyptian and Persian skulls, which still lay there in separate piles, and he claims an identical experience at the battlefield of Premis. The idea of novelty might at first seem paradoxical when he is recording past traditions and past histories, the past history of Sparta, for example, and when many of his stories have the archaic ring of the folk tale. And there's some citations here. You haven't read this, so they don't mean anything to you. That's one thing that they're kind of at introductions. A lot of times it's like they sort of presuppose that you've already read the book. And, some of this stuff is quite shocking, to be honest with you. Not this part. This part's a little dry. But, there's people eating kids in this shit. There's fucking people having a fucking, like communion of like familial blood on the battlefield. There's some nasty shit happening. Rest assured. Anyway, the story of Solon's visit to Croesus, the rise and fall of Croesus in Book 1, in many ways, Herodotus' history show his immersion not only in the traditions of his times, but also in the most exciting intellectual developments of the latter part of the 5th century. His inquiry was a significant part of the shared milieu of that period that included early medical investigations and speculation, philosophical experiments, sophistic arguments, and creative speculation of all kinds. His methods of inquiry and his own awareness of them reveal that he is very much a product of his intellectual climate. Today, we expect historians to be aware of their methods and sources, but his practice only began in the latter part of the 5th century. It is visible in the texts of the early medical writers, which were collected under the name of Hippocrates, and in the works of contemporary philosophers, and in general in this period, different methods of getting at the truth, with or without the help of visual evidence, were being investigated. Thucydides picked up Herodotus' methods and improved upon them, stating his methods in a more compressed and authoritative manner, but with some of the same vocabulary. Had Herodotus not led the way, Thucydides' task would have been far harder. There are also links between different writers of the period in the treatment of certain topics. When Herodotus described in Book 4 the customs, or nomoi, of the Scythians, an ethnic group which lived in what is now the Ukraine, he balanced this with an account of the geography of the area, which was remarkable for its many rivers. We know from the late 5th century essay, Air, Waters, Places, attributed to the Dr. Hippocrates, that Scythia was a focus of intention to those intent on linking climate and geography to the physical character of the human inhabitants. This link, in turn, determined their susceptibility to certain illnesses, particularly the Scythian, quote, female disease. The Scythians turn up elsewhere in the Hippocratic corpus and seem to have been something of a cause célèbre as people whose physical constitution was extremely damp. The Libyans were very opposite, very hot and dry, and in Greek eyes, therefore, much healthier. Interesting. So the Scythians, well, I guess probably because they lived around rivers, were like of a humid climate. I live in Florida, so I probably would have to hang out with them. Like I went to Las Vegas like a little while ago with my mom. I don't think I can hang out with the Libyans because I tried to walk around out there because I thought it'd be fun, and I went back in the a hotel, and my lips had mummified. It was fucked up. I looked I'd been left out in the desert for like a week, and it's just amazing. I can't be around any kind of dry climate at all. I gotta stay in the wet. I gotta stay damp. I gotta stay damp, folks. I'm sorry. Damp or die, I always say. Anyway. He knows about these investigations and can employ the idea of environmental determinism himself, but he does not borrow slavishly. On the contrary, he seems to criticize them implicitly, as when he stresses that the Scythians' nomadism was the really effective part of their strategy in resisting the Persians, or when he emphasizes that custom/law, or nomos, if you're Greek, is the governing principle in the character of a people. Here he tells them an experiment of the Persian king Darius, who asked a group of Greeks what it would take to persuade them to eat the bodies of their dead parents. They exclaimed that nothing would induce them to do such a thing. Darius then asked a group of Indians, It says Delos. I'm guessing they're in Delos. We'd probably call them Delians or something like that. I'm not sure what that where the term Indian comes from. Darius then asked a group of Indians who were cannibals what they would take what they would take to burn their parents' dead bodies as the Greeks did, and they were equally horrified by the very idea. Thus, from this demonstration, Herodotus concludes that the famous poet Pindar was right. Quote, custom is king of all, unquote. Here, custom is implicitly contrasted with nature and the environment. One of the primary interests of the various writers we call sophists was in the relation or opposition between nature and custom, or physis and nomos, if you will. Medical writers linked geography and climate to health and constitution and a type of environmental determinism. So, when Herodotus stresses the importance of nomos here, as he does also for an explanation of Spartan superior courage and a conversation between King Xerxes and the former Spartan king Demaratos, he is engaging in the same debate and coming down on the side of nomos as the determining factor. Okay. Elsewhere, he criticizes current theories with arguments and vocabulary which would have been thoroughly familiar to the other contemporary intellectuals. Whether we call them natural philosophers, sophists, or medical writers matters less here, since they overlap considerably in this period. That's true. I mean, I don't think I need to say, like, that's true. Like, I'm not fucking telling. Like, this guy, you know, I can do okay in ancient history categories in Jeopardy. This guy would fucking hand my ass to me. No fucking problem. I don't gotta tell you. Anyway. For instance, he criticizes the Ionian writers who believed Egypt comprised only the Egyptian delta. Quote, if we think correctly about these things, then the Ionians do not think sensibly about Egypt. But if the opinion of the Ionians is correct, then I undertake to show that Egypt. If we think correctly about these things, then the Ionians do not think sensibly about Egypt. But if the opinion of the Ionians is correct, then I undertake to show that neither the Greeks nor the Ionians know how to count, who say that there are 3 parts to the earth, Europe and Asia and Libya. His greatest tour de force in this vein is his long section about the different theories on the cause of the Nile River flood, knocked down one after the other in Herodotus' most argumentative and polemical style. When Herodotus says in the first person about the Macedonian kings, quote, now that these are Greeks, ellipses, as they themselves say, I can affirm to my own knowledge, and indeed I will demonstrate that later on, that they are Greeks. When he talks of having proof and evidence, he is using the flamboyant, polemical, and demonstrative style that was fashionable in the latter part of the 5th century, particularly in the display lecture for a live audience and the investigation into natural philosophy and medicine. Knowing about fashionable theories, however, does not necessarily mean that someone accepts them. To say that Herodotus shared some of the ideas and language of the medical writers and sophists is not to affirm that he necessarily accepted all their views, still less the more radical ideas associated with certain sophists. He says in his own person that he believes nomos, or custom law, if you'll remember, to be crucial to human society, which distances him from the most subversive sophists who championed nature, quote unquote, as the more important in human morality. But he seems happy to declare one or the other custom that he describes to be an excellent one. He singles out the Babylonian marriage market practice to be, quote, the wisest custom, unquote, of the Babylonians. Sadly, it had fallen into disuse, he says, but they used to hold an auction in which the money offered by rich men to acquire the most beautiful women as wives was then redistributed as dowries to give to the less beautiful as a kind of compensation, so that everyone, rich and poor, beautiful and less beautiful, could thus find a mate. This is not the remark of someone who simply accepts all human customs as equally good or worthy. He expresses disagreement with those who thought animal behavior would be used as a justification for human behavior. Speaking of the Egyptian and Greek taboo against coupling in temples, he says that some said this was justifiable because animals did, but, quote, I do not agree with those who now defend their practice in this way, unquote. It was a fashionable sophistic trick to defend the apparently indefensible on the grounds of animal behavior, because of the whole nature thing. Such arguments and their often ridiculous implications are parodied by Aristophanes in The Clouds. Herodotus seems to know of such arguments, but he is firmly traditional. Animal behavior is one thing, the world of humans another. He was part of the, quote, Greek Enlightenment, unquote, in many ways, but remained distant from the most radical or revolutionary theories of the sophists. Since here, there's a little, I mean, there's a lot of like annotations in this and everything, and those might not translate very well to being read, verbally, but I'm going to do my best. So here's what it's an annotation about Greek Enlightenment. Greek Enlightenment is the term sometimes used to refer in shorthand to the upsurge in intellectual creativity and innovation in the second half of the 5th century associated with Periclean Athens, the emergence of the sophists, Thucydides, Euripides, and Socrates. The period, or Socrates, if you're one of these, God, there's so many fucking people saying Socrates, and like these videos about this shit. It's like, you can't be making a video about like this shit and be saying Socrates, all right? You can't. I'm sorry. You can't. You cannot be saying Socrates. I'm sorry, but you can't. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't say Socrates, all right? You just can't, all right? You can't. You can't. You can't say Socrates, okay? You can't. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, Socrates discussions in most of Plato's dialogues. I should have just finished reading that. Anyway, okay. Above all, he believed that there was a truth that could be discovered, or at least he was keen to affirm that he was finding out the truth. The histories are full of statements of fact and corrections by Herodotus, both to false anecdotes and to accepted tradition. Moreover, while he shared the late 5th century emphasis on human activities in determining the course of events, he believed, like most Greeks, that oracles would come true and that the divine might affect the human world. This perhaps deserves some emphasis. Greek states and Greek cities consulted the oracles, above all the oracle of Delphi. This is Delphi, there's a map, about the future course of action. And if we believe the traditions, questions might be direct or roundabout, and the answers might range from enigmatic riddle to the most straightforward directives about what deities to honor in order to achieve the desired result. Apollo at Delphi is portrayed repeatedly as foretelling the future, and it is striking that in Herodotus' histories, the oracle may be misunderstood or misinterpreted by the human actors, but the oracle, mouthpiece of the god, does not itself lie. The priestess may be bribed or give a false oracle, as in, sorry, citations here, but that is another matter. The oracle shit is fucking nuts. And if I remember correctly, I think that they might have mentioned it earlier, but I think that it's either one of these. There's several Persian kings throughout this thing. There's Xerxes, there's Cyrus, there's Darius. One of them goes to the oracle of Delphi, and they're like, do not go over there. Don't go to Greece. Don't try to conquer it. And they're like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking go anyway, and they lost ultimately. So should have listened to that crazy fucking gas huffing bitch. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be funny or something. I'm going for shock value. I'm fucking like Michael Richards out here. It's pathetic. It's fucking pathetic. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, man. I'm in a low place today. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm in a low place. I was watching The Sopranos. It was fucking my head up, okay? I don't know if you've ever been in the hospital for like 3 months, but if you have, you know. You don't want to be thinking about it after that. You've had enough of the hospital at that point, and you need to, being reminded of it is kind of an asshole thing for someone to do. Even if it's a TV show, and even if it was made like 20 years ago, it's still pretty shitty, if you ask me. And he didn't, because no one's watching this, and no one ever will. No one ever will watch this. So this is good. This is good because before I was like fucking watching Celebrity Jeopardy and whatnot, and doing other things. Trying to do my Mystery Science Theater shit with Man Undercover or something. I might do that later. I don't know. Do it with a video game. Who can say where the Uncle Gameboy show will take us? No one knows. I don't even know. But oh geez, I'm sorry. One sec. Some days are better than others, folks. Some days are better than others. Anyway, I mean, here's some little insight information. I shouldn't be. I fucking got a call from the doctor earlier, and I was all fucking worried about it because my ongoing health concerns, which you don't know about because I don't have a fucking audience to fucking give me money to ask me about it. As soon as they do, you'll know. All the inside information. It's the only way you're gonna find out, unfortunately for you. But I was just waiting on some test results and everything, and they all came back negative. Everything's fine. Or not, everything's okay. Everything's acceptable. Nothing urgent needs to be done. So that's good. That's good. That's good. That's pretty good. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. Okay. But what I was saying, the point I was saying is that if I'm gonna be fucking doing this, and doing the fucking Uncle Gameboy show, I might as well do this. But this is something I need to do. I need to read. Is that Herodotus or is that Socrates? I don't know. Kind of looks like they all kind of look alike. Oh, careful now. They're basically white people. It's fine, right? Greek people are basically white, right? Yeah. I mean, come on. Give me this. Come on, they're white. Come on. Give me it. Come on. Give it to me. Give me this. Come on. Give it to me. Give it to me. They're white. Enough said. I think that was one of Alexander, or is that Alexander the Great? No. I think that's Ptolemy. I think that guy was Ptolemy. Or oh gosh, what was the guy's name? Starts with an S. Shit. This is what I'm talking about. Folks. I used to know this shit. I could have told you all the fucking Alexander's generals before. Sadducees or something like that. No, those were priests that fucking crucified Christ. Oh my god. Oh geez. Seleucides or something like that. Something with an S. That's all I can tell you. But Ptolemy, that might have been Ptolemy. I could have told you all the fucking Alexander's generals at some point. I could have told you so many fucking things about Alexander the Great. So many things. Now I can only tell you like 5. I can tell you about the Gordian knot. I can tell you about the time that he threw some fucking elephants for a loop. Some really, died quite young. I'm sure you're aware. It's played by Colin Farrell. That's about it. I fucking don't know any fucking thing anymore. It's fucking pathetic. I was basically like a damn scholar, I was basically like a damn scholar. And now look at me. Now look at me. Can you believe it? Anyway. Delphi shit's fucking nuts. It's amazing how much this influence had influence on the world and how long it went on for, Fucking Julius Caesar is talking to the oracle. I know it's the oracle at Delphi, but like they're going to oracles. Julius Caesar is going to oracles. That's like fucking like that's like at least like 400 years after this. That's a long fucking time. The country I live in has not even freaking existed that long. All right. If that gives you that's Alexander the Great, I'm pretty sure. What are you doing to me, Twitch? What are you fucking doing to me? Giving me gas. Oh, you're giving me gas. You're giving me gas, Twitch. I'm trying to understand what you want from me. What do you want from me, Twitch? What do you want? Do you want me to stream and say nothing until I die? Is that what you want? From what I see on here, that is what you want. That's what you want from everybody. You want us to stream for hours and hours and hours, begging people for money until we die. That's what you want, you sick maniacs. How dare you? How dare you do this to the American people? How dare you? What's wrong with you? Why are you driving us to these lengths? Why are you driving me to this? The only way I can fucking read a fucking book is if I use it as some sort of justification to make a terrible stream so that I can make money for fucking nothing. Something I should be fucking doing anyway. It's fucking deplorable. It's deplorable. My God. What are you driving me to, Twitch? Fuck. Oh my God. This is fucked up. This is fucked up. You do these on this day of all days. Do this to me on this day of all days. I can't even fucking believe it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. checking myself out on the camera. I'm like, yeah, it's small enough that you can't really see what I look like. It's good. Okay. You can see the hole in my neck pretty well, but you can't see my significant facial scars that well, you know? So I'm sorry. It's in my damn mind. For biddies, I don't even have biddies, hypothetical biddies. For pennies, for shekels. Well, shekel's more than a penny. Shekel do you right. You get a sandwich for a shekel. Anyway, fuck. Ugh. We got history to learn. We're here to learn history. We're here to enlighten ourselves and grow as human beings. Everyone else on Twitch is trying to deaden your brain and get inside your fucking wallet, scrape out every fucking penny you have for doing fucking nothing. Me, of course I'm trying to do the same thing. Of course I am. I want you to die for me. I want you to fucking lose your house for me, okay? I want to adopt your kids. I want you to sell your kids to me and have me legally adopt your kids. All right? I want everything. I want everything you have, just like everyone else on here. I'm no different, okay? But at least I'm trying to do something of value. At least I'm trying to educate your fucking ass. All right? Can you say anyone else on here is doing that? No, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry. I've looked, okay? I've fucking looked everywhere. I've looked all over Twitch. I've spent, I don't even know how many days. Oh, yeah, I do. It's like 7 looking on Twitch. And it's bedlam. It's horrible. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And I've been on YouTube. I've seen all kinds of crap. All right? God damn. It's fucked up. This is so fucked up. I'm sorry. It's just so fucked up. This world is so fucked up. I can't even believe it. I was, started doing this thinking I'm going to be teaching you about how horrible the ancient world was. Now I'm reading about it. I'm reading about the ancient world, and I'm in the modern world as much as I fucking can be. I'm on Twitch. I'm in the fucking Matrix, or I'm in the machine. I'm part of the machine, the modern machine. Just go with it, okay? So juxtaposing the ancient world in these pages and the modern world that I'm broadcasting those pages on, and considering the comparison. And I would have never thought I'd say this under normal circumstances, that I would rather be here, that this is better. I'm going to read some stuff to you in this book, folks. It's awful. It's bad. But is this bad as all this? Is this as bad as Twitch? I don't know. Now that I know what Twitch is after a week of looking into it, it might be worse. This might be worse. I don't know. I think that was like Constantine or something like that. That was a thing they did in the past the sort of like the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Like that's like Byzantium, like Istanbul today, I guess. Constantinople, the Eastern Roman Empire, which continued far into like the, I don't know exactly how far it went on. I think it went into like almost if not further than like the ages of like William the Conqueror and stuff like that. But I might be wrong about that. But it went on for like hundreds of years at least afterwards. Anyway, the point I was making is that they were like Christian and shit, Constantine. And they made those statues with like really big eyes because it was supposed to be like their eyes are like godlike, or they're like idealized or whatever. I don't know. I'm not explaining it well, but their eyes are bigger. They like, if you see them, like, why are their fucking eyes all fucked up and big? And it's like they used to make better statues back in the day in the old Western Roman Empire. Why does it look like shit now? They were better before. It's like, oh, well, trends change. What people want out of art changes, okay? I'm surprised I have to explain that to you, but I guess you're on Twitch, so of course I have to explain that to you because you don't fucking know even one thing. Unless I teach it to you, which I'm trying to do right now. And I should get back to if you don't mind. Thank you. Where the fuck were we? We were talking about the Oracle at Delphi. The priestess may be bribed or give a false oracle is in as in blah, 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 but that's another matter. It is the fault of men if they willfully or arrogantly interpret an oracle in such a way as to defeat the original hopes. Croesus, for example, interpreted the oracle, "You shall destroy a great empire," to mean that he himself would be successful against the Persians, whereas it actually meant the opposite, as the god Apollo pointed out to him afterward. The destroyed empire would be his own. Yeah. Croesus, we'll get to it, but I love Croesus. Croesus is my favorite character in this. He used to be the most, like, if you've ever heard the phrase "rich is Croesus," that's that Croesus. Like, he was like so fucking rich that he was like the thing you reference to say someone is insanely rich. It's like you're so rich you're like Croesus. You know, that's a phrase that still exists today. I heard on the fucking Sopranos like a fucking week ago. You know, but he was just a little quick rundown. He was, you know, like I said, he was in Turkey. He had a fucking very rich empire of his own, very successful guy, you might say. And he consulted the oracle, and he I'm just repeating what he said, but I feel it, you know, it's very hard for you people to understand things, even the most basic things. So I feel it bears repeating that, you know, he said, "You're going to fuck up a whole fucking empire if you do this." And he's like, great. That's exactly what I want to do. Asked and answered. On I go. And they're like, "Oh, but there might be another way to interpret that information, isn't it?" And yes, it was. Because the empire that he destroyed was his own Lydian empire. Oh, fuck. You know, egg on my face, I guess. So what happened after that? He got enslaved by the Persian king. And, you know, you might have some sour grapes if you're in that situation, understanding that it used to be the most rich and powerful king in 100,000 miles distance around you, and now you are fucking in a cage. You know, you're being dragged around as a prisoner. And but Croesus made the best out of it. He actually became, I believe it was Cyrus. It might have been Cyrus or Darius. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Xerxes, but I believe like Croesus becomes his most valuable advisor. Like, he is a smart guy. He's fought in a lot of wars. He's dealt with a lot of shit and a lot of stuff that the Persians are dealing with. He's like, you know, they're ready to employ a certain strategy, and they're like, you know, he's like, you might not want to do that. And like, don't listen to this fucking guy. You're fucking prisoner. And he's like, yeah, but he's also freaking Croesus, all right? And he has freaking integrity, all right? And like, turns out he was telling the truth. And I think in the end of Croesus's life, he became like a valued educator. It ultimately worked out okay for Croesus, I think. I think he died more or less peacefully. I don't remember. I mean, generally it doesn't work out that way for these guys. They usually die in battle horribly and then are ripped to pieces. But, you know, I don't know. We'll see. I don't remember, honestly, how it ends for Croesus. But I feel like, you know, he's just kind of a cool guy, I guess. I don't know exactly why I like him. You know, he just seems like a survivor, you know, and he doesn't let circumstances get him down, no matter how bad they might be. You know, I don't know about you, but I would probably just if I was in that situation. First, I'd have to invent a firearm. Then I'd be in a pretty, you know, I mean, if I'm doing that, then I'm probably able to, you know, retake my kingdom, you know, because they got fucking bows and spears and chariots and crap, and I got, you know, a gun. I don't know what the ultimate purpose of that is. I'm noticing getting quite hungry. Oh god, yeah. How much more of this is there left? Okay, I think I can only get to the end of this part again. We're still oh my goodness. Oh, I'm gonna barf. Oh, this book is so big. This book is so big, it's making me sick looking at it. Sorry. I'm sorry, it's making me sick. Fuck. We got a long way to go, folks. We got a long way to look at this. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Yeah, look at that. That's not even a page number. They're fucking giving me Roman numerals. They're like, you're not even in the actual book yet, buddy. You're not even on page 1. You're in page XXVI, motherfucker. You know, a long way to go before you're anywhere near the beginning of this damn book. We don't have to go through all this like exhaustive like timetable shit. You know, that's what the book's for. But I mean, if you got the introduction, that's like fucking like 15 more pages. Then we got the editor's preface. You think I'm not going to read that? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to, buddy? This might be how you're fucking used to reading a book, but you know what? When I tell someone I read a book, I read the book. That means I read the whole fucking thing, cover to cover. Let me show you fucking something. No, I'm not going to get this. You know what a Bible looks like, all right? You're not a dang heathen or whatever, I'm sure. So I said I read the Bible, and you know what I did? I read every single fucking word in that big book, and it's a big book and a hard fucking book because it's the King James fucking Bible, motherfucker, okay? So, I mean it, okay? I'm reading you the book. This is the book. Maybe you fucking people, and you're trying to give yourself excuses for reading things. Oh, I read that book. Oh, really? Oh, but I skipped this part. Oh, but I skipped this part. I skipped the puff up. And before you know, you're reading fucking 3 pages and saying I read fucking War and Peace. All right? You're reading the back of a book and said, I've read fucking Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It's fucking pathetic. Do you actually want to be educated? Do you actually want to be educated? Or do you just want to seem like you are? Do you just want to convince people you are like I do? Or do you actually want to be educated like I am? What do you want in life? What do you want in life? Huh? It should be more like me. Frankly, is what I think anyway. Be more smart like Uncle Gameboy. If you can, if you have the patience, I think you do. You know what? I wouldn't be doing. Let me be honest. I'm talking to you give me some tough talk here, but I know you can take it because I fucking have faith in you. All right. I know you can deal with this. I know you can do it. I wouldn't fucking be sharing this difficult material with you if I thought you couldn't handle it and if I was above your fucking level. Okay. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm not trying to make a fool. I'm trying to fucking elevate your ass. All right. But you got to do the work. You got to read the entire introduction. Even if it takes like 5 days of the fucking Uncle Gameboy show. Even if it takes the rest of the Uncle Gameboy show. Even if it takes the rest of my fucking life to read you this book. I'm going to read you every single fucking page in it. I'm going to figure out how to get the maps on the fucking screen. All right. I'm going to show you what's going on, the movements of the armies, etc. One guy will go over here, you go over there, keeping track of Pausanias, things like that. You don't even know what I'm talking about. For shame. You're going to learn a thing or two. On the Uncle Gameboy channel if you stick around, that is. If you stick around like a good egg. But hey, if that doesn't sound important to you and you just want to waste your life and burn your brain into a fucking obliteration, fucking go on by. Nice seeing you. Good luck. Good luck is what I'll say. Good luck. You're going to need it like the fucking guys needed luck against Solomon the Great. I think that's who that is. I don't know how to point that way. Here we go. That. Oh my God. What is this? Okay, so it's this way. So it goes that way. This guy right here. Solomon the Great. Anyway, we're going to get through this first part. Then I'm done. I'm done with your ass, okay? That's all the patience I have for you today, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Okay, so while the gods do not feature as actors in the historical narrative of histories as they do in Homer, Herodotus does affirm that it is plain from many pieces of evidence that the hand of God is active in human affairs. He makes this claim in his narrative of the last stages of the Persian Wars, and he makes this claim... Oh, I need to follow with my finger because I just was about to say, he makes this claim in his narrative of the last stages of the Persian Wars, and then he makes this claim in the narrative... I could have kept doing that for the rest of the show. You could have done it for the rest of the show. Yeah, I know it's freaking annoying. I gotta blow my nose all the time. I know it's freaking annoying. I'll just say this. I'll pray it never happens to you, okay? I'll pray it never happens to you because that's the type of guy I am. I take that ire, I turn it around, I forge it into love itself, okay? Get it straight. All right, so... While the gods do not feature as actors in the historical narrative of the histories as they do in Homer, Herodotus does affirm that it is plain from many pieces of evidence that the hand of God is active in human affairs. He makes this claim in his narrative of the last stages of the Persian Wars and the final battle against the Persians at Mycale in Asia Minor. He states that, quote, it is plain, unquote, if it is true that the rumor of the Greek victory at Plataea against the Persians managed to reach the Greek army fighting the Persians on the same day all the way across the Aegean at Mycale. There is a hint of caution here, note the careful expression, but we are left with the strong impression that the divine plan was indeed to encourage the Greeks fighting at Mycale, so that they would win the victory in Asia, as well as the crucial final battle on the Greek mainland. The hand of the god, unnamed, is also seen in the terrible storm of Euboea, which did so much to reduce the superiority of the Persian fleet so that it should equal the Greek one. Herodotus's moral world is thus one which looks backward rather than forward, and which seems seems reminiscent of an older Greece. It is worth dwelling on this. Further, modern readers are struck almost immediately in histories with the sense that men and women are punished by the gods, brought down for excessively arrogant behavior or for the sins of their forefathers. The story of Croesus, king of Lydia, offers all of this, and its place as the main opening narrative suggests that Herodotus meant it to be emblematic in some way for the rest of the histories. Croesus, the fabulous... I'm probably going to fucking tell you everything I just fucking told you. Whatever. Croesus, the fabulously wealthy Lydian king, was anxious to show off his wealth and good... Wait, hold on. Oh, I thought this was going to be the story where he puts gold in his hair. I like that one. I'm going to stop preempting this story and just get through it. Croesus, the fabulously wealthy Lydian king, was anxious to show off his wealth and good fortune to Solon the Athenian, one of the many wise men who visited Croesus. Solon, however, was unimpressed, offering instead two examples of men of greater happiness. Talus, who died bravely and received a public burial, and Cleobus and Biton, who died in their sleep after the strenuous efforts on behalf of their mother and the deity. From these examples, he also draws the uncomfortable and paradoxical moral, quote, never call yourself happy until you are dead. That is fantastic. That's awesome. Never call yourself happy until you're dead. Ooh, buddy. They had a way with words, didn't they? Man's life is buffeted constantly, and the gods are jealous. Good fortune can change very suddenly. The gods seem to punish Croesus for thinking himself the happiest of men, for Croesus continued in his high opinion of himself, misinterpreted in his arrogance the enigmatic oracle mentioned above, which said, "You shall destroy a great empire," attacked the Persians, and lost everything. Not only had he brought this misfortune on himself, but by his own arrogance, but it turns out that he was also suffering for the misdeeds of Gyges, an ancestor 5 generations back. When he accused the god Apollo of misleading him with the oracle, Apollo replied that he had managed to delay Croesus' fate for 3 years, but not even the gods could escape the fates. That is a thing. Like, even Zeus is afraid of the fates in Greek mythology. This awareness of the transience of, and that I could get into some stuff there. I was just like, I go off a tangent about the triune goddess and the moon, the religion of the moon that predated the Hellenic invasions of Greece, and we're talking about something that happened a fucking while ago. This is like Trojan War times, way before this, like fucking almost 1,000 years before this, and further back. But I'm not going to digress on that. Okay, we're fucking getting through this shit. And you know what? I just decided something. I'm feeling zesty. I'm going to keep freaking going. I want to try to get through this fucking motherfucker, even if no one ever watches this fucking shit, okay? This awareness of the transience of human fortune and the jealous nature of the gods fits smoothly with the moral view of man's place in the world that we see in earlier poetry and much of Athenian tragedy. It is very Greek, very traditional, and to some extent Herodotus may have absorbed and continued it from the traditions which he recorded and reused. By definition, these would tend to encapsulate traditional lines of morality and the idea that the gods would punish arrogance. Yet the placing of this story of Solon and Croesus, as I have said, suggests that Herodotus meant the moral to have emphasis for his histories as well, and may be significant that the warning figure is a highly respected Athenian. At the start of the histories, just before he turns to Croesus, he says he will, quote, describe equally the small and great cities of men. For the cities which were formerly great have most of them become small, and such as are powerful in my time were formerly weak. That's hard to say. Jeez. I shall therefore tell equally of both, knowing that human happiness, or eudaimonia, if you will, in Greek, never continues long in one place. The instability of human fortune, then, was central theme. It is this, followed by the Croesus tale, that persuades some scholars that Herodotus meant the warning to have force in his own day, and for the most powerful and most prosperous city of his time, the city of Athens. The virtue of Herodotus' narrative and the presentation is that he does not need to spell out a message. The implied moral lies there, implicit in the text for anyone to see if they so wish, clothed in the garb of traditional and therefore unprovocative wisdom, and his exact intentions remain ambiguous. We shall also consider here as an abiding force that the motif of revenge and the dynamic of tit for tat, more elaborately called reciprocity, which readers will see in the often bewildering chains of explanations offered for actions and motives. This, too, seems to be an archaic and traditional motif and was probably embedded in the oral traditions of many cities as the explanation for an action or situation. With all the simplification that oral tradition brought to bear on complex historical forces. In a particularly complex example, the Spartans in the late 6th century helped some Samian exiles to defeat the Samian tyrant because we are told the Samians had once helped them, the Spartans, in a struggle against the Messenians. But the Spartans themselves see their action as revenge because the Samians had once stolen a bowl which Sparta had sent to Croesus. The Corinthians are also willing to help because they had been insulted by the Samians generations before in a manner which Herodotus then explains. This rather crude form of explanation seems also to be a powerful traditional motif in explaining the behavior of individuals, though it is by no means the only form of causation in the histories. The expansion of the Persian Empire can equally be defended in terms of the need to maintain the dynamism of the ruling empire. The opening of Book 7 offers a spectrum of different forms of causation and explanation for the Persian invasion alongside the traditional motifs of reciprocity and revenge. Okay. I was going to stop there, but I am going to try to keep going. I don't know why. Just like the people that watch and patronize Twitch, I am demented. That can be the only explanation. How far can we believe Herodotus' account? Are the histories reliable, or some sections more reliable than others? Is the love of a good story sometimes more attractive for Herodotus than the quest for truth? Herodotus, reliably, has often been questioned, and some even wonder whether he was committed to giving historically accurate information at all. Could a serious historian really believe some of the implausible tales he recorded? For instance, that an important stage in the Ionian revolt against Persian power was launched by the, quote, the slave with the tattooed head. For Histaios, stuck in Susa, which is in Messenia. Oh no, never mind. Sorry, that was a different annotation. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. My lips are dry. 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 For Histaios, stuck in Susa, sent a slave with a secret message tattooed onto his head and the hair grown over to tell Aristagoras in Ionia that he should now revolt, or that King Amasis of Egypt abandoned his alliance with Polycrates, tyrant of Samos, late 6th century, because Polycrates was too fortunate and therefore bound to meet a reversal. And then there is this curiosity about marvels, exotic animals, or humans at the edges of the known world, of which his giant gold-digging ants of India are among the most notorious. I thought they were from Egypt or Indian, whatever. Anyway, no, okay. I read Alexander. I read Arrian's Alexander. I mean, I remember very little of it, but I feel like I remember this part because it says this did not prevent Alexander the Great from looking for them. However, when he was in the vicinity, so. I mean, I don't know. If it's good enough for Alexander the Great, maybe it's good enough for your fucking little dumbass. Maybe, just maybe. I don't know. Maybe if Alexander the Great thought this was worth reading, Maybe it has some value. I know he did a few things in his life, probably more than your fucking ass did. Certainly more than mine. Certainly more than mine. But you know what? I'm reading the books. I'm reading the books. What the fuck are you doing? If you're not watching this channel, you're not reading the books. You're not being read the books. You're not getting this information in any way. Not at all. You're watching some Australian douchebag play Minecraft with a 9-year-old. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Educate yourself, motherfucker. Read a dang book. Have me read your dang book called Histories by Herodotus. It's so much more worth your time than whatever the fuck you're doing watching some Australian guy play fucking Minecraft, a 9-year-old or something. I don't know. What the fuck are you doing? You make me so pissed off. I'm fucking punching my fan over here. What are you doing to me? Fucking watch my channel. Educate yourself or something. I don't know. Anyway. And what about the Egyptian and Persian skulls neatly separated on the battlefield of Pelusium mentioned above, which enabled Herodotus to discover an interesting fact about skull thickness? Phrenology alert. The sometimes bewildering combination of serious political analysis and wondrous marvels has led to the nickname, quote, father of history, father of lies. Oh my goodness. Don't talk about your boy that way. Where would we be without Herodotus' efforts? Okay, we wouldn't know anything. We wouldn't know freaking anything. We'd still be freaking thinking the gods are fucking pushing us around the fucking globe or whatever. Jeez. We should be thanking those very gods that, have no influence on us for real, for bringing us Herodotus. Father of lies. That's Satan. That's what you call Satan. You don't call Herodotus the father of lies. How dare you? How dare you? He worked so hard for you and you call him the fucking devil? What's wrong with you? Anyway, a more extreme accusation has been made that he deliberately and quite consciously gave false information or even made it up. A few modern scholars suspect that he goes much further than relaying doubtful information, that he consciously invented material stories, and even the very statements he gives about how he got his information. Tell me where they fucking live. I will find them and I will shut them up. Tell me where they are. I will put a stop to this nonsense. One or two have even doubted that he went to Egypt at all. I'm glad this introduction wasn't in it when the first time I read this fucking book, because this is pissing me off. This is pissing me off, and I'm about to do something terrible about it. It's pissing me off. I'm about to do something terrible about it. Anyway, one of the two, if you doubt he went to Egypt, I hate reading again. I'm sorry. He went to Egypt at all, despite his frequent remarks about what he saw there, and though he repeatedly pressed upon the reader his own experiences, what he saw himself as a reason for believing him. If we accept this skeptical view, our image of Herodotus, the traveler and researcher, would be left in total disarray. Yet, on the other hand, his integrity is also defended, sometimes vehemently, by yours truly, and anyone else who has fucking two fucking cents in their fucking head. Occasionally, he may be pulling the wool over his audience's eyes, we might admit, but then there are counter arguments too. Perhaps, some scholars suggest, he has simply got things wrong, been misled by his informants, or been taken in by exotic travelers' tales. Yeah, he's fucking hoofing it, folks, okay? Like, this is a time where he fucking had to go there to do the research, okay? He's just one fucking guy. He's doing his best. Give him a break already. Or perhaps he simply could not resist including some curious but questionable stories. The giant anthill is said to be a Persian account. Well, won't be the first lives told by a Persian. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say on the matter. The disagreements and indeed the very controversy seem to hinge mainly on two questions. First, what do we think Herodotus meant to convey in his 5th century audience, who may not have understood his statements in the way a modern reader might? And second, what was he in position to hear, see, find out, and investigate in that period? For the first question, he clearly does indicate that he has carried out investigations himself, that he has traveled widely and questioned people, and that it would seem most unlikely that he would have invented these practices completely when he was inventing the method of carrying out such research. The satire or parody of a genre is likely to be comparatively late development within the genre, not in its initial stage. That's funny. That's funny. Well, perhaps Herodotus was making a satirical work, like a satire of what? His own shit? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Yeah, that's a bizarre claim to make. Like, it was just a big fucking joke. It's like, about what? Hold on, I think my cat wants to get in here. Heidi, would you like to read with me? Yeah? Baba. Baba, I'm almost done, Baba. Doing this longer than I thought, but Heidi, you would weep unendingly if you knew how fucking uneducated these people are. They don't know fucking anything. They're on here all fucking day watching people play video games and not even joke around when they're playing video games. Just fucking like look at what they're doing and say, "Oh, I'm opening the box now. I killed the guy and I killed the guy and I killed the guy. Now I'm walking and now I'm walking and now I'm walking and I killed the guy and now I'm walking." It's that kind of shit. It's that kind of shit for like 8 damn hours. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. It's so fucked up. So let me just keep educating the good people on the internet. You know, it doesn't matter if they don't appreciate it. It doesn't matter if they're not even aware it's happening. Okay, I'm putting it out there as a public service for the people in the land that I love, the United States of America, and the health and the educational health of the body of the masses. All right. If I don't do this, there is no hope. So I have to try to get to this introduction at least. It's very long. It's a very long introduction. And every time I turn a page, I'm like, and that's it, right? And that's it. No, we have yet to get to numbers on the pages. Yeah, well, you know, it's like what JFK said. We do these things not because they are hard. Okay. That's all I got. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So, sorry. Ugh. I know. I'll open the window a little bit, okay, sweetie? Oh, gosh, where were we? Fuck. And it would seem that most unlikely that he would have invented these practices completely right when he was inventing the method of carrying out such research. The satire parody of a genre is likely to be a comparatively late development within that genre, not an initial stage. That's a pretty highfalutin way to take someone's ideas down. Call them a fucking dumbass, you know. Anyway, for instance, early in book 2, Herodotus gives a fascinating story about an experimental rearing of young babies organized by the Egyptian pharaoh oh my goodness. Okay. Psammetichos, the Egyptian ruler. Psammetichos, in order to find out the first natural language, and the story he prefers is the one given him by the priests of Hephaestus and Memphis. That's pretty cool. Though the Greeks have their own versions of the story, and he comments further on the learned Egyptian priests with whom he conversed. This sounds like an elaborate, perhaps slightly labored effort to stress new and thorough, if somewhat. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Ugh. Delicious. Anyway, so Hephaestus in Memphis. Herodotus gives a fascinating story about an experimental rearing of young babies organized by the Egyptian pharaoh Hephaestus in order to find out the first language. And the story he prefers is the one given him by the priests of Hephaestus in Memphis, though the Greeks have their own versions of the story, and he comments further on the learned Egyptian priests with whom he conversed. This sounds like an elaborate, perhaps slightly labored effort to stress new and thorough, if somewhat eccentric methods of inquiry. There's There's too many commas in that sentence. One strand of the debate has criticized the way Herodotus loosely gives a version of events or motives as what is said, quote, by the Athenians or the Corinthians or the Egyptian priests, and have taken absolutely literally with references or sometimes puzzling or inventive skepticism. However, not all the remarks about certain traditions need necessarily imply that he has gone to the most knowledgeable and direct source, which in itself would be unlikely for all cases. I would particularly emphasize phrases such as, quote, the Athenians say, but the Persians say, the Corinthians say, etc., which recur throughout the histories. Taken literally, these impressions might imply that Herodotus talked to, quote, the Athenians, or more likely members of the Athenian elite, and that these were therefore his direct source. Herodotus giving us a tradition with mention of his source in an almost modern fashion. So some scholars interpret them. But it is almost invariably a piece of Athenian history that the Athenians say, or a Samian version that Samians say, all quite neat and logical. Should we take these literally, a more plausible interpretation is that Herodotus usually means no more than this is the Athenian tradition or this is the general Athenian version of events. This version belongs to the Athenians, thus that he is signaling the social memory, the collective memory, and his audience would know this quite well. We shall return to this when we look at oral tradition below. That's not okay. Turning to the second question, we should not judge his account purely against modern standards of accuracy. It is occasionally suggested that because he is simply wrong in modern scientific terms, he cannot have seen what he says he has seen. His account of the labyrinth of Egypt, a great wonder, is hard to match up with the later description of Strabo and the foundations that are all that is left of this immense building, though a reconstruction is possible, and one might expect from its very name that casual observers like Herodotus might indeed find the grand plan hard to grasp. The measurements of the Euxine Black Sea are not strictly accurate, though he says he was on the north coast, and that it is strange that he has remarkably little to say about the great temples of Thebes and Luxor in Egypt, which he says he visited. A more complex example, which tantalizes the modern reader into wondering what he really saw in Egypt, is the striking section in which he claims the Egyptians do everything the other way around the rest of mankind. Quote, the Egyptians themselves and their manners and customs seem to have reversed the ordinary practices of mankind. For instance, women attend market and are employed in trade, while men stay at home and do the weaving. Men in Egypt carry loads on their heads, women on their shoulders. Women urinate standing up, men sitting down, unquote, and so on. And he continues in this vein for some time, moving gradually to the detailed account of the most remarkable of Egyptian practices like mummification. There are many theories about what Herodotus might have meant here, which serve to defend or undermine his veracity. Despite all this, however, both antithesis and exotism, he still believes that the Greeks learned a great deal from the Egyptians, including much Greek religious practice. He presents this in his own discovery. So they are hardly, quote, opposite in every respect. An even more notorious example is that of the flying snakes of Arabia, whose skeletons he claims to have seen himself lying in great piles at Bauto, where they were killed by ibises as they entered Egypt. They have puzzled most commentators. What could he have possibly seen, if anything? Yet he says he went to Bauto expressly to inquire about these snakes. Was he too credulous when being shown around by his Egyptian guides, or does some chain of stories and misunderstandings lie behind this that can only elude us now? He claims that his information about Egyptian history and much else comes from discussion with the Egyptian priests, but the accuracy of his accounts compared to modern knowledge of Egypt is quite patchy. His account of the process of mummification is astonishingly accurate, but could he have really talked to the priests or to lower temple attendants he assumed were priests? Or did he simply talk to Greek intermediaries in Greece? What's this now? What are we watching? I want to show like ruins and stuff. This is like what is this? We might need to pick a different video. Give me 1 second. I mean, there's no one. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who I'm talking to when I say that. I guess Heidi. I'm talking to you. Heidi, just bear with me 1 second. That was, yeah, fine. Just, redo it. It's fine. You get the idea. You know what Greece is, right? It looks like this. I know you're not familiar with most of the terms of the, events or anything I'm saying, but you have heard of Greece? Yes? You know what Greece is? Not in your hair. in Europe. That's what I mean. I think I can assume that. You know what Greece is. Yeah. I don't have to explain Greece. Okay. We need some common sense here, and we should not lose sight of an appreciation of what Herodotus was trying to achieve. That was new. Scientific history was not yet invented. Indeed, history itself was not yet a discipline. Traveling was difficult. Geographical knowledge still mingled with what we would call mythical space. Permanent note keeping was probably difficult. Anyone with extensive travel experience knows how topography, places, and details can get inextricably confused, even or especially with the help of the camera. A superficial acquaintance with local culture can, in a travel account or guidebook, take on the veneer of a more profound understanding of what is essentially an alien culture. Modern travel writers frequently take shortcuts despite the ease of modern travel. Moreover, the observer is likely to see things through the filter of his or her own culture. Certain features will be picked out, others left unobserved, yet others misinterpreted. Just on these grounds alone, it seems hardly surprising that if Herodotus sometimes has curious views of a place or people when compared to full archaeological evidence now available. Of course, yeah. Like I said, he's hoofing it. He's doing all this research himself in his individual lifetime, which I might remind you, you might think, oh, that's only like 40 years. Well, if you do think that, you're a fucking moron, okay? People lived well into what we would consider old age, or at least something close to it in ancient times. Fucking Julius Caesar died in his 60s and he was fucking murdered, okay? He didn't die of old age. Fucking, this is later on, but like another example, Ramses II outlived 9 of his sons. He lived to be fucking like 88 or something like that. He lived before Cleopatra, like fucking hundreds of years before her, okay? Fucking people could live old in ancient times. It's the average is low, okay? So I forget how old Herodotus was. He's probably like in his fucking 50s or 60s or something when he died. I'm not sure. Let me see. I'm gonna check real quick. Says he was 60 when he died, they think. Okay. See? Your fucking ass would be like, oh, no one lived to be that old in ancient world. And then you tell it to other people and they share it. And next thing you know, this is commonly understood knowledge and it is entirely false. You people sound like fucking country rubes out there, okay? I'm trying to save your ass. I'm trying to save your ass from yourself, all right? God knows you're not going to do it, all right? Anyway. Fuck. So where were we? Okay. Just on these grounds alone, it seems hardly surprising if Herodotus sometimes has curious views of a place or people when compared to the full archaeological evidence now available. It is quite possible that the Egyptian priests to whom he talked lacked an entirely accurate picture of their country's history, and that the accounts attributed to them in the histories might also represent an amalgam of Greek ideas of what the priests said and the priests' traditions seem inevitably through and the priest traditions seen inevitably through a Hellenized lens. Then again, certain of these priest traditions, as recounted by Herodotus, may in fact reflect elements in Egyptian temple culture of the 5th century. Perhaps Herodotus did not describe the fabulous temple of Karnak because he did not go there, or was not allowed in, or for some reason was only briefly in Thebes, or not at all. Could he have lifted his famously odd description of the hippo with its mane and tail like a horse, quote unquote, from his predecessor Hecataios? Hecataios, yeah. Hoping that Hecataios had seen more of one than he had? Was this one of his shortcuts, and one that he did not realize would be detected because Hecataios had also taken a shortcut? Or were they both simply concocting the description from the very name hippopotomos, or river horse? It is hard indeed to believe he went to Babylon simply because his description is bizarre and exaggerated, and indeed he never quite says he did, only that he will not describe the yields of millet and sesame because no one would believe it unless they had been there themselves. And when he says, quote, the greatest wonder for me after the city itself I will now describe, unquote, he is using an oddly oblique way of implying his own personal knowledge. So yes, Herodotus probably took a few shortcuts, but to go further and disbelieve all his claims to have seen what he says he saw, to deny all his assertions that he was trying to discover true accounts of the present or past would certainly be extreme. And I very much agree with that. You know, I think honestly, reading this book, like what this guy did is fucking incredible. Like I think all the time about these people who are on the cutting edge of discovery and you know, discerning what the world is in ways that we really take for granted, like history. You know, like history is just the way that we understand what happened to us, and it gives us context for now. But someone had to do it. Someone had to come up with it. And as far as we know, this guy did. And that's amazing. Like we should be, I don't know. I feel bad for these people like, well, he was fucking full of shit. He's full of shit. And he wasn't even a fucking real science. It's like, bitch, science didn't fucking exist. History didn't exist. None of this fucking shit existed. Before this, it was mythology, which is, you know, I got another book here by Robert Graves, The Greek Myths, but like that shit is just veiled history. It's like he was able to codify the events of in his case, the recent past, in a way that we can understand today as things that actually fucking happened. The way that people talk about things that happened in history, you know, before that, when there was plenty of fucking history going on, fucking human beings were around for like hundreds of thousands of years before then, going back to, you know, civilization, at least 10,000 years. But this, and like fucking like 400 BC or something, is the first time we have actual history. All that going up until then is just mythology. That's people's best way of interpreting what is going on in their world. And we are just, I mean, we're here trying to figure out what the fuck it even means. You know, we can't fucking understand if it's symbolic or literal or whatever. It's fucking crazy. There's people like, were they talking to aliens? Like, we have no fucking idea. It's crazy the difference between that level of description and this. Like, this is a revolution. Like, we can actually fucking understand this. We can understand that this shit fucking happened, when it happened, where it happened. You can't do that with mythology. I mean, you can try, but it's you're going through, you know, a series of obfuscations that make it almost impossible. This is the beginning of a real scientific pursuit. It's incredible. It's incredible that he did this. I just think it's, you know, play off the fucking guy. All right, he invented history. Okay, he invented fucking history. Just take it easy on the guy. You know. Anyway, let's see. Yes, Herodotus probably took a few shortcuts, but is extreme. Moreover, it would be surprising for someone to invent examples of conventions within a genre that do not yet exist. Yes. As I mentioned above, the parody of a genre is likely to be a relatively late development within that genre. That is such an academic way of saying what you're saying is so fucking wrong. It's like if you even understood what you were saying, you would see how stupid it is. You know, it's like a very academic way of saying that. The most interesting point is that he tried to describe foreign cultures, foreign monuments, and foreign mentalities at all, and that he did so with an open-mindedness, which is astonishing. I agree. We should be very amazed and thankful for his incredible work. That it's like I want to try to imagine like some fucking jack off like me or the unfortunate degenerates that watch Twitch trying to do something like this today, with just no basis for what it even is. It's just like, I don't know. We should all just sink into the ocean. This fucking society's done. No one can be Herodotus today, and you fucking know that. I couldn't. You couldn't. Fucking Jeff Bezos couldn't be. No one can be Herodotus. No one. Anyway. He was also contending with the frayed edges of the world it is known to the Greeks, the ends of Greek knowledge, where perhaps someone heard from someone else about the tribes or geography beyond the next horizon. What is striking and would have been revolutionary in his day was that he bothered to point out for his audience tales that he thought stretched credulity. This is an interesting part of his story, and where his knowledge gave out. Like, this is something you'll notice a lot. Like, look at earlier when he's talking about the ants and the gold ants. Like, frequently Herodotus is like, I'm just telling you what I hear. I go around, I ask people what's fucking going on, what happened, they tell me, and I tell you. And he also gives his opinion about whether or not he thinks it has any value based off of, like, he's like, I fucking asked this other guy over here in North Africa and he confirmed what fucking they said in Greece, and therefore I fucking think this actually happened, but this I only heard here, so I don't think it's real. This doesn't seem like it makes sense to me, so I don't think it's real. Like, for his time, where there was very little differentiation between mythology and fact, between magic and science, Like he's trying very, very hard to make it just the facts, ma'am. And it's just incredible that he was even able to have that fucking idea in this time period, you know? In book 2, he says he went down to. I'm going to stop talking over this. Also, I'm just going to get through this. Get through the next. Oh my god! Oh, fuck! I'm not going to read the whole damn intro. I'm just going to read like. Oh jeez. Yeah, I'm going to finish this part. But I gotta get through it. I gotta stop fucking trying to elucidate the text. You know. I can only work so fucking hard for you. I can only work so fucking hard for you. Okay? I can only work so fucking hard for you. Especially for you. In book 2, he says he went down the Nile as far as Elephantine at the first cataract. Quote, I went to Elephantine and saw myself. After that, I rely on hearsay. Or saw myself, not I saw myself. Like, it seems a little unlikely that he had really traveled as far as Elephantine, for he had just mentioned an absurd account on the sources of the Nile north of Elephantine with two conical mountains called Crofi and Mofi. Kufi and Mofi, and fathomless springs which flow one toward Egypt, the other to Ethiopia. And he says he thinks the scribe who told him this was playing. Yet far later accounts may corroborate the names as truly Egyptian. Was Herodotus amalgamating folk tales and topography, or one tale with another? Or his own experience with curious and not entirely compatible accounts from Egyptians? What is significant is that his curiosity did not stop even there, and he proceeded to add hearsay accounts of what lay beyond even Elephantine. What is this? Why are there planets on the screen? I'm supposed to be looking at. Okay. I think, speaking of the Oracle of Delphi, I think that's her right there, huffing them gases, getting them secrets, making the world what it is today. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. We should also reckon with the extreme difficulty of fully appreciating an alien culture, as modern anthropologists are well aware. Outsiders' perceptions may be influenced, perhaps fatally, by their own preconceptions. That's not very nice putting those two words so close to one another. And theories and the prejudices or assumptions of their own culture. Sorry. That set me back a bit. Nor do local informants always give the most informed or most official account of local practices. Herodotus went to Egypt and Scythia with an array of Greek conceptions and expectations, and to some extent he must have seen these cultures through Greek eyes. When he says that the Egyptians are quite the opposite in their customs to the rest of mankind, mankind seems primarily, it's like he's using himself as the reference. Mankind seems primarily to be Greeks. The fascinating question that arises for the reader of Herodotus is how far he has combined common Greek perceptions, more educated Greek theories, and the awkward intrusion of the visual evidence, what he saw himself, that might correspond to neither of these. He made sense of the world in part in terms of the Greek. He made sense of the world in part in terms of the Greek division between Greek. I'm sorry, that sentence is fucked up. I ain't no fucking good copy writer or reader or editor or whatever the fucking word for that is. Proofreader, I think might be it. But that's messy. That's a garbled pile of junk. You gotta fucking clean that guy up. He made sense of the world in part in terms of the Greek division, but God, I can hardly even fucking read it. He made sense of the world in terms, in terms, Jesus fucking Christ. He made sense of the world in part in terms of the Greek division between Greeks and the barbarians. But he transcended that dichotomy to such an extent that he could show noble barbarians and praise barbarian customs. Barbarians are the Persians, by the way, non-Greeks. He would Romans did the same thing. It was a common thing for like whoever the perspective is of, the ancient society you're existing in, or you're reading about. They called the other guys barbarians. That's a pretty common thing. Like the Romans called other guys barbarians, of various parts of the world, He would describe completely unfamiliar practices like the Scythian royal burials or Egyptian mummification in ways that correspond well to modern archaeological discoveries and attribute much of Greek religious practice to Egyptian influence. That's true. Yeah. There were also models that were like Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra is like literally a mixture of a Greek and Egyptian deity that was like worshipped in both places, I think. There were also models that were popular in Greek natural philosophy for understanding the world. The early Greek scientific division between the hot and the cold, the wet and the dry, seems to be there in his accounts of Scythia and Libya. Yeah, as mentioned earlier. Says, note the large number of horned animals in Libya. Greek science held that horns grew best in hot and dry conditions. That's interesting. I wondered, But which came first, the theoretical framework or the observation? I'd imagine probably the observation, and then they sort of like retrofit the rationalization for it. Sometimes the theory. Some of his comments about the natural world seem bizarre now, but were taken seriously enough to deserve rebuttal by Aristotle. He objects to Herodotus's in generation. He objects to Herodotus's Aristotle does silly account of how fish reproduce. Well, you were probably fucking talking about parthenogenesis or something like that, which is it's a thing, or spontaneous creation. You think fucking maggots come out of meat? All right, you got a long way to go, Aristotle. I'm just kidding. We owe a lot to you, and so does Alexander the Great. He was his teacher. You never stop learning on the Uncle Gameboy channel. I hope that's what you're understanding at this point. All right. No good deed goes unpunished. That's all I'll say. We may also bear in mind that Greek natural science had its own interest in the apparent extraordinary. We may also bear in mind that Greek natural science had its own interest in the apparently extraordinary, the obviously marvelous, as elements which demanded new explanation and further investigation. Wonders merited an account, however, in their own right too. Remarkable tales often appear in Herodotus precisely because they are marvelous. Some stories set in Indian Arabia sound more like tall travelers' tales, or, in the case of spice harvesting of Arabia, exotic marketing tales. In any case, Herodotus embraces the marvelous as a subject for his inquiry. On Egypt, he explains that he will describe it at great length because of the large number of remarkable things in the country, end quote, and because of the fact that more monuments which are beyond description are found there than anywhere else. It is because of these that I will dwell on it at greater length. Herodotus seems to have conceived of his task as covering the entire known world, mapping the vast expanses of the inhabited world, and mapping it in terms of what could be known and what could not, in terms of human activity and human inhabitants. He pointed out how far knowledge could reach, what was the furthest extent and the limit of human information. For instance, on the sources of the Nile, he made a comparison with the Danube. Now, as this river flows through regions that are uninhabited, its course is perfectly well known. But of the sources of the Nile, no one can give any account, since Libya, the country through which it passes, is desert and without inhabitants. As far as it was possible to get information, I have given a description of the river, unquote. On the edges of it's a Greek word, Oiqoumene, oiquomene. In particular, travelers' tales merged with myth. Hyperboreans, people living in the far north and mentioned by the poets, whose very existence Herodotus doubted, Libyans, and the various inhabitants of the African desert, which he charts going west, along with lotus eaters, dog-headed creatures, men without heads, and therefore with eyes in their breasts, and people without names. His remarks about truth, falsehood, and probability are interesting here, for he notes quite emphatically for the reader that what he considers unverifiable, and this serves to reinforce the information he gives elsewhere as correct. Thus, ocean, the great rivers surrounding the known land mentioned by the poets, takes matter into the realm of the invisible, where therefore admits. Wait, hold on. Wait, thus takes matter into the realm. Oh, I see. Okay. So he's saying ocean. This is a quote. So he's the ocean was like, they didn't understand like the like, I'm talking a little bit out of school here, but these people didn't cross the Pacific Ocean. Their understanding of the barriers of the world were limited, and as I understand it, they thought that there was a circle of water that it encircled, for a lack of a better term, the Earth. And I guess what he's saying is his assertion is that it, quote, takes the matter into the realm of the invisible, which therefore admits no refutation. Thus, one element of mythical and poetic geography is calmly set aside as beyond the possibility of proof. Other pieces of information about the edge of the world are hedged around with a careful murking of a train of informants, as with travelers into the African interior who came across a crocodile-infested river flowing east to west, which Herodotus believes be the Nile. He says that he got this account from the Cyrenaeans, who got it from Etearchos, king of Ammon, when he was at the oracle of Ammon, who told him what he had heard from the Libyan Nasamonians, whose wilder young men had explored the desert. In one of two possible proofs that Libya was surrounded by sea except for the Suez Isthmus, he mentions the Phoenicians who sailed around Africa from east to west at the Egyptian pharaoh's behest and insisted that the sun appeared on their right, to the north. Because of this statement, Herodotus declares that he does not believe them, but he relates it all the same, and for us the statement indicates their veracity, and Herodotus's denial illustrates a limit of his geometrical knowledge. He may not be able to resist a good story at times, but he will often express disbelief or say that he is not sure. There is a link here with his knowledge of current intellectual arguments mentioned above. He can express incredulity in modern sophisticated language, but have the best of both worlds in telling the story anyway. He mentions, for instance, the tale told by the, quote, bald-headed men who live beyond the Scythians. They say that the mountains beyond them, that is, in the far north, are inhabited by goat-footed men, and beyond that, by men who sleep for 6 months of the year. Of the latter story, Herodotus says he thinks it utterly incredible, unquote. He can mention a story which amuses and fascinates while showing off his superior discernment in disbelieving it. It is remarkable that Herodotus does not simply follow the same vein of prejudice and simplification about various barbarian peoples that we see in other Greek writers of the time. He was influenced, like anyone, by the mentality of his age and culture, but he went far beyond that influence and often seems deliberately to puncture some prejudice about foreign peoples. As he says about Greek misunderstandings of the Egyptians, the Greeks tell many silly stories without investigation, and among them is the silly fable of Heracles, or Hercules if you've only watched a Disney movie in your life, have never read a book, which he proceeds to criticize on logical and rational grounds, since the Greeks are utterly ignorant of the character and customs of the Egyptians. But Egypt had fascinated Greeks for generations. Mentioned in Homer, it had become home to Greek traders and mercenaries who lived in Naucratis and Memphis, controlled settlements in the Delta, and from as far back as the late 7th century. Egypt was a source of exotic luxuries, ancient wisdom, and influential styles of monumental art. These were barbarians who Greeks could admire. Of the other Near Eastern empires, Herodotus had skimpy knowledge, but the Persians were another matter. They had attacked or conquered Greeks and were regarded with far more hostility by them. It is all the more remarkable, then, how balanced and fair Herodotus is in presentation of the Persians. He introduces the Persians as a people with some noble characteristics, for instance, their abhorrence of lying, and some commendable customs, such as their rule that the king should not inflict the death penalty for a single fault. He carefully explains how, unlike the Greeks, they do not believe that the gods have human form. Cyrus the Great, who founded the Persian Empire, is depicted as an admirable ruler, though he yielded to excessive pride in the end, and to a lesser extent so is King Darius, who initiated the Persian invasion of 490. Cyrus's son Cambyses, however, is portrayed as totally without respect for normal conventions, let alone other people's beliefs. And Xerxes, the aggressor of the second Persian invasion, is also portrayed as the typical tyrant, prone to sudden and inexplicable bursts of brutality. It is undeniable that acts of autocratic atrocity are generally attributed to the Persian king. Yet Xerxes, seeing his great army about to invade Greece, is suddenly struck by the shortness of human life, and in an almost Solonian moment, realizes they will all be dead in 100 years and bursts into tears. It is Cyrus who gives the wise advice about the perils of expansion and of acquiring riches, which forms the very last paragraph of their histories. The final words about the dangers of becoming soft and luxury-loving. Of course, it is relatively easy to admit that your prime enemy, i.e. the Persians, had admirable traits as long as those traits were safely in the distant past and you can portray them as decadent and in decline in the present, the period in which you have defeated them. Yet it is striking that Herodotus portrays the Persians in Book 1 as courageous and fierce, and initially they are fighting for their freedom from the Medes, though the Persian Empire in later Greek thought was regarded as antithetical to freedom. That's very interesting, because that's what I was saying earlier. It's like our understanding of like the guys who were the good guys is the Spartans in 300. It's like the people in the ancient world in that situation who were the least into the idea of people having inherent notions of freedom or not being enslaved for any reason other than their ethnic, their birth. In other words, were the Spartans. They were the least freedom-minded people in all of the ancient world. They were like, they sucked. They fucking sucked. But like, I guess the Persians being the bad guys in this situation, the Greeks are seen as people who liberated themselves from potential enslavement, I guess. But as far as like whose societies functioned like relied on slavery more, you can undeniably say that like especially Sparta, in comparison to the Persian Empire, like relied far more on like forced labor, slave labor, brutal practices, etc. So it's just kind of saying it's kind of ironic how like how things sort of get understood, as our cultures, the basis, is the basis of our cultures is the Greek Western civilizations. It makes sense that we would inherit that tradition even very far into the future with like our fictional portrayals of the period, that like this like orienting of the Persians in contrast to the Western states. It's like if we really had to live in those places, we would probably do a lot better in Persia than we would in somewhere like Sparta or Thebes or Corinth. Like, Athens was the democracy, like I think Athens, like, but even so, if you weren't a citizen in Athens, you weren't fucking shit, so like, it wasn't like you're just in Athens and now you have a say in things. That wasn't how it worked at all. So it's just interesting, like by when we our understandings of freedom and who is oppressing freedom and who is fighting for freedom, it's very dependent on your circumstances, but it might not be very objective, is all I'm saying, especially from our perspective, like much later. I personally think that like as an American, we have a lot less in common with the Spartans than we do the Persians in this regard. Anyway, yes, yet it is striking that Herodotus portrays the Persians in Book 1 as courageous and fierce, and initially they are fighting for their freedom from the Medes, though the Persian Empire in later Greek thought was regarded as antithetical to freedom. Herodotus insists that the Persian general Mardonios, on behalf of the Persian king, gave the Ionians democracy shortly after the disastrous Ionian revolt. This was a claim which would have surprised an Athenian audience. Athenians behaved as if they had monopoly on democracy. Yeah, I'm sure they would be quite offended by that idea. He once remarked slyly that the mainland Greeks were terrified of going east of the island of Delos, for they thought that all the islands in the Asian coast were overrun with Persian soldiers. Here, Herodotus was probably making a dig at the ignorance and fear of mainland Greeks. For Herodotus, who grew up in Halicarnassus, and his contemporaries who also lived on the western edge of the Persian Empire, were probably much more familiar with Persians than were the mainland Greeks, and much less naive. It may also be the case that in the in-between position of a place like Halicarnassus, partly Greek, partly Carian, on the edge of both Athenian and Persian empires, enabled Herodotus to be reasonably even-handed in his treatment of the Persian Empire. The recent publication of some remarkable Persian documents, the fortification tablets, now confirm that Herodotus has a great deal of accurate information about the workings of the Persian Empire, including the royal road, its subject peoples, and many named Persian dignitaries and officials. His presentation of the Persians was far more sophisticated and rounded than the cliches that abound in political writings of other Greeks, particularly in the 4th centuries, by Isocrates, Plato, Aristotle, and so on. 500 years later, the 1st century CE, writer Plutarch was so disgusted by Herodotus' stance that he called him Philobarbos, or barbarian lover, in his strange essay on the malice of Herodotus. Indeed, Herodotus' curiosity about the customs and mores of non-Greek peoples, from the Scythians to the Egyptians, not merely the main Persian antagonists, is a quite remarkable and original feature, which was to exert a strong influence on Greek historians for centuries. To sum up, then, in many cases, Herodotus' account was probably as reliable as his informants and sources, and probably in part replicated the oddities, distortions, and prejudices of his world and its traditions. In his accounts of distant and foreign lands, we need to recall that his subject matter does include the marvelous. The marvelous. He may well have taken shortcuts occasionally and included irresistible stories, even though he did not quite believe them. His accounts, like any others, will have been influenced by his curiosity, prejudices, and particular interests, but we should not judge him rigidly or exclusively by modern standards. His preoccupation with true accounts and correct versions reveals that he was not merely peddling fictions. Some of the novelty of his achievement was precisely in the sustained and serious curiosity about non-Greek lands and peoples, and much of this, ridiculous though it may seem now, continued to be discussed by Greek writers like Aristotle, interested in the oikoumene, the inhabited world. I read for like fucking almost 2 hours there. And sure, nobody saw it. What else is new? Not even a bot from Bangladesh. I was hoping I'd get a bot from Bangladesh being like, hey, we got cheap viewers. You got cheap viewers. You want some viewers? You want someone to ever watch this fucking thing that you're doing? You got to fucking pay us, buddy. No one's going to fucking watch this on their own. You must be dreaming if you're thinking that. You must be a greatest fool in history, the greatest fool since fucking Pausanias, if you fucking think that. All right? But not even that. Whatever. You think you can stop me? Nothing can stop me. All right. Anyway, that was it. That was the Uncle Gameboy show. It was me reading Herodotus for 2 hours. I had a good time. I got some things done. I'm reading SPQR now too. I mean, I've read it like twice on a plane. I've like gotten a couple false starts. I think saying I'm reading it's not very genuine. I'm saying I'm reading it the way that all of you say you're reading a book. I'm just a bit more upfront about what that actually means. I'm just repeating what I've heard from others. They say I read a book, and then you press them on the mat, and they're like, "Oh, I skipped this part. I skipped this part." Some of you got a funny definition out there, but finishing a book is me. It's reading it cover to cover, every last dang word. Okay, that's why we got to get the introduction first. We're gonna get to the book pretty soon. All right, and maybe someone will show up and listen to it by then. I don't know. I don't know what you fucking people want, clearly. Anyway. That was the Uncle Gameboy show. I'm Uncle Gameboy. Bye.